humid weather conditions currently prevalent over the island makes you want to have liquids in your system all the time. And according to this particular vendor, he told me that close to 200 king coconuts have been sold at this particular location in a span of just half an hour. It's 12 noon and I'm standing opposite the Fort Railway Station. The people are braving the sun and engaging in their day-to-day activities. According to Met officials, the sun will be overhead Sri Lanka starting from today to the 14th of this month. News First has a comprehensive report on this story tonight on our primetime news. Join me at 9 tonight for details of this and more stories. Good evening and welcome. You're with News First, your number one news provider. I'm Shamir Rasooli.
And I'm Krishna Panditharatna. We start off the news with a look at your headlines first.
The third stage of the Divinagama program begins. US State Department submits a report to Congress on Sri Lanka. The sun will be directly above Sri Lanka from today until the 14th. Acting Minister of Mass Media says taxes on motor vehicles were increased to reduce vehicle imports.
Time now for our developing story. The US State Department has submitted a comprehensive report to Congress on the action taken by the government of Sri Lanka against violators of human rights. The report, titled Measures Taken by the Government of Sri Lanka and International Bodies to Investigate and Hold Accountable Violators of International Humanitarian and Human Rights Law, has been compiled by the Office of Global Criminal Justice of the State Department. The last such report was submitted to the US Congress on the 11th of August 2010. The latest report released yesterday extensively covers the period since the release of the last report in August 2010 and present.
The State Department report draws attention to the UN Secretary General's panel of experts report, which it says identified credible allegations of violations of international humanitarian and human rights laws by both the government forces and the LTTE. The State Department report observes that though the panel of experts report recommended steps to address those allegations, no action has been taken as yet. The US State Department report also notes that the LLRC recommendations could provide the government of Sri Lanka with an opportunity to promote national reconciliation if they are fully implemented. The State Department report also draws direct comparisons between the UN panel of experts report and the LLRC report.
The National Patriotic Movement has urged the government to reveal its stance on the resolution on Sri Lanka that was adopted by the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva recently.
If we carefully study the resolution that was tabled at the Human Rights Council in Geneva, it states that the country needs to be divided according to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution and to implement this solution. They refer to the LLRC report. The government has not expressed a clear stance in this regard. There are many ambiguous areas. Government ministers say various things. Therefore, on behalf of the people, we have a right to call on the government and the president to reveal their stance on this issue. Are they going to implement this, and what recommendations will be implemented? If they are not going to implement it, then what sections will not be implemented? I would like to note that based on this report, if the 13th Amendment to the Constitution is being implemented, that will be the end of this nation, the government and the president.
The third phase of the Divinagama National Program to create 2.5 million domestic economic units began today. An event was held in this regard under the auspices of President Mahinda Rajapaksa at the President's house.
The President planted a tree at the President's house to mark the commencement of Phase 3 of the Divinagama program. The Divinagama program will be implemented in 14,019 Gram Seva divisions across the country. Meanwhile, member of the House of Lords, Lord Nesabi, called on President Mahinda Rajapaksa at Temple Trees today. Lord Nasabi is incidentally the co-chairman of the British Parliamentary Group on Sri Lanka.
You're with the news first, taking a look at one of our headline stories this evening. The Met Department says that the sun will be directly above Sri Lanka from today until the 14th of this month. The sun was directly above Kandegoda, Middeniya and Veeravilla at 12:14 this afternoon.
The sun lies 150 kilometers away from the earth. It takes 8 minutes for a ray of light to reach the earth from the sun. What is meant by the sun being directly above? The sun's axis is not perpendicular to the earth's rotational path. There is a slant of 23.5 degrees. Due to this, the time at which the sun is positioned directly above a certain area differs. The sun moves directly above the equator by the 21st of March. It is during the first week of April that the sun moves directly above Sri Lanka. It gradually moves towards the north and returns by the first week of September. The Met Department says that the sun will be positioned directly above Vaskadua, Palmadulla and Okanda areas at 12:13 in the afternoon tomorrow. At 12:13 p.m. on the 7th, the sun's position will be directly above Yatiyantota, Ragama, Kotmale, Karavanalla and Komari areas. The sun will be directly above Galagedara, Akurana, Karatiu and Katun area at 12:12 p.m. on the 8th of this month. The sun will be positioned directly above other areas as follows. Several areas including Colombo are experiencing hot and humid conditions these days. Our cameras captured the manner in which the general public seek various types of refreshments to get off the heat. This is the Middeniya town. The sun was positioned directly above it today. Sun's rays descend on our country at a right angle. Accordingly, the energy received in a certain land is higher. So we should expect a rise in temperatures. That is because more energy is generated during the daytime.
The United National Party says that it is the lower classes that have been affected by the increase in vehicle importation tax.
The government, by introducing this new tax, has hit those trying to buy motorbikes and three-wheelers. 34,563 three-wheelers had been imported in 2009, while 37,816 three-wheelers had been imported in 2011. The number of three-wheelers that were imported has increased by 298%. The number of motor cars that had been imported has increased by 1,486%. Where does the problem lie? 5,280 million has been spent for the importation of three-wheelers in 2009, while the cost incurred in 2011 was 24,500 million. Meanwhile, the cost incurred for motor cars was 77,270 million. The highest amount of foreign exchange was spent on this. It increased by 3,577%. Why are they trying to attack the common man? Kabir Hashim also noted that berthing vehicles at the Hambantota port is also another issue. Several ships carrying vehicles to the country were not allowed to unload at the Colombo port because they wanted to divert them to the Hambantota port. The process was delayed as the Hambantota port was not ready for this. As a result, the tax that most people have to pay has doubled.
Acting Minister of Mass Media Lakshmana Abhivardhana says that the government raised taxes on motor vehicles in order to reduce traffic congestion and fuel import costs. The acting minister made this statement at the cabinet media briefing today.
මේ වාහනවල වැඩිවීම සෑම 5 දෙනෙකුටම එක වාහනයක් තියෙන තත්යකට රටේ පත් වෙන පටන් ගත්තා.
Today there is a situation in the country where 1 out of 5 people have a vehicle. In the year 2009, 204,000 new vehicles were registered and 350,000 vehicles were registered in 2010. This number rose to 525,421 in 2011. Vehicle usage was becoming unsustainable. In 2009, we spent over 111.7 billion rupees on oil imports. In 2010, we spent 149.7 billion. When the price of a vehicle increased by around 700 to 800,000, everyone speaks about it and they say they need some relief. We did not have this publicity when we lowered the taxes. This publicity was not there when we reduced taxes by 50% in 2009.
ආහනවල බදු මිල අඩු කරනකොට මේ ප්‍රචාරය ගියේ නැහැ. 50ක් අඩු කරන වෙලාවේ 2009 මේ ප්‍රචාරය ගියේ නැහැ.
Journalists questioned the acting minister on the move to divert ships carrying vehicles to the Hambantota harbour.
They have set to use the Hambantota harbour to unload vehicles. It is said that this will result in a further price increase.
No, there will be no such increase. We are using the Hambantota harbour to ease the congestion here.
Minister, all the vehicles are to be unloaded at the Hambantota harbour. A proper customs unit has not been set up there yet. The vehicles will have to be cleared through the customs in Galle. Is this practical?
Take the Colombo harbour for example. How many years did it take for all the functions at the port to become streamlined? But we still build the harbour. It must function.
Time now to take a look at the newspaper cartoon of the day, which we selected from amongst today's English newspapers.
Former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca was brought to a private hospital in Colombo for a blood test today.
The government has once again hit the poor man by increasing taxes on three-wheelers and motorcycles. The government has no understanding as to how the poor man survives. They are extracting the wealth of the public in a disgusting manner. We will rescue our people. Meanwhile, the United Bhikkhu Front has forwarded a letter to the President calling for the unconditional release of former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca before the new year. The letter signed by the Anunayaka of the Ramanya Mahanikaya, Venerable Girambe Ananda Thera, Venerable Mityagoda Gunaratana Thera and several other Buddhist monks states that it is disappointing to see the existence of vengeance in a Buddhist country like Sri Lanka, where people respect all races and religions.
Internationally acclaimed veteran film director Dr. Lester James Peris celebrated his 93rd birthday today. President Mahinda Rajapaksa visited Dr. Lester James Peris' residence to wish him on his birthday.
The President arrived at Dr. Lester James Peris' residence in Bambalapitiya this morning. Lester James Peris, who was born on the 5th of April 1919, is an acclaimed film director, scriptwriter and film producer. He started his career as a journalist at the age of 17 at Lake House. In December 1956, he firmly established himself in the cinema industry with his maiden production, Raycover, which displayed his extraordinary skills. He has not looked back ever since, going on to pile on accolade after accolade, and that has earned him a unique place in Sri Lankan cinema. Starting from his masterly production Raycover, the cinematographer has elevated Sri Lankan cinema with each of his subsequent productions that have won many an international award. Asin Polavata, Viragya, Golu Hadavata and Avaragira have been commended not only locally but internationally as well. The inestimable contribution made by this great son of Sri Lanka has helped raise the local cinema industry to new heights. News First wishes Dr. Peris a very happy 93rd birthday.
Time now for a commercial break.
Stay connected, stay with News First. We will be right back.